Alright, time for depression. Here we go. Good things first. But if you'd like a more comprehensive display of everything that worked about Chapter 7, there's an 18-minute long video on Crunchyroll that presents them all in chronological order. We start off the chapter with an afteran lighting the morning lantern, quite literally switching on daytime. 12 seconds into the chapter, and we're already doing creativity. And if you don't mind, I'm just gonna put this over here for convenience. Okay? Okay. So right off the bat, Jesus. Blake, if you two are gonna live together, perhaps invest in a CPAP machine. Anyways, like I was saying, right off the bat, we get treated to a fun little animation where Jaune almost kicks Weiss in the face on his way out the door, which is incredible. If it wasn't already clear from the stopwatch and the jackalope, Jaune is the white rabbit, and I think it's one of the best Alice in Wonderland integrations of the season up to this point. The musical score is really solid throughout the chapter. It's lively and fun in the beginning, subdued and mysterious towards the middle, and sufficiently edgy during a scene that I will talk about, I promise. The fight scene looks visually glorious, even if it largely amounts to spinning around and breakdancing for no reason. But come on, it looks cool, yeah? Yeah, this sword deflection is delightful, and the sound design tickles my brain. Shout out to Casey and Martin once again for their work on this volume, because this chapter's given me yet another reason to look forward to the full soundtrack. Here's another fun little detail. Ruby's eyes look bloodshot for this one camera angle. It's very subtle, you might not have noticed it. Paper Mario Village, despite being rather minimal in its design, is vibrant and has lots of character. This extends to the paper pleasers themselves, who I love unconditionally. The first act does a great job of deceiving the audience into thinking this is just a cute, clumsy village where Jaune is loved by all. Hiding beneath the surface, however, is some of the most tragic and, dare I say, profound storytelling the show's ever had. Jaune naming the paper pleasers after his friends is some real I Am Legend stuff. It's funny, but tragic, and I quite like it. And while I'm talking about Jaune's handiwork, this list of tasks is an amazing read and has some wonderful attention to detail. I especially appreciate how he's placed Find a Way Home dead last, forcing himself to solve other people's problems ahead of his own. But the paper pleasers don't want to be saved, and are essentially being kept alive against their will. They're too polite to say it overtly to Jaune, so instead they deliberately try to cease existing through increasingly shocking methods. Oh God, why? I've seen some people interpret this as an attempt to vilify Jaune, but I almost entirely disagree. If you're confused about why he's got this hero complex, allow me to recount the sum total of Jaune's experiences up to this point. Failing to save Pyrrha, rocking up at Shion Village just in time to watch the last survivor die, watching in horror as Cinder makes a Weiss kebab, losing track of Oscar, going to the movies and by extension not being around to stop this from happening, losing track of Oscar, again, failing to stop Neo from retrieving the relic, failing to rescue Oscar, again, and right as he tries to heal Penny, being forced to kill her by his own hand. So yeah, after spending 15 to 20 years all alone with nothing but his past failures to keep him company, it should really come as no surprise that he'd project his desire to actually rescue people onto the first vulnerable souls that bump into him. Despite occupying only 15 minutes of screen time, this village and its demise makes a remarkably strong impact. There's also the possibility that it's unintentional, but I suspect the Pebble Tower represents the fall of Beacon Tower, the first incident he failed to prevent, and the water submerging the town is a stand-in for the fall of Atlas, the last failure. In an attempt to make up for his past mistakes, they're all still flooding back. They could have ended the chapter there and I would have been happy with that, but they follow up on Volume 9's best told story with an absolute banger of a scene. Ruby's breakdown is incredible in almost every sense of the word. Lindsay Jones gives a downright nasty vocal performance, and the editors made a rather smart choice to preserve all of her breathing. Every word that comes out of her mouth makes perfect sense for the character, and the drama between her and Jaune feels real. She's internalized her struggle over the entire volume and gradually grown a resentment for her teammates insistently nagging her for her opinion on every single thing. Her anger directed towards Yang and Blake in particular also makes perfect sense. These three got catharsis in Dreamland. Ruby got bullied. These two got to sort their feelings out. Good for them. She got ditched by the one creature who actually seemed helpful. Impeccably animated facial expressions. The score is lovely. Jaune's response is realistic and well-earned. It's just a sublime set of work. Also, an interesting animation detail I noticed. One trait of this show's character rendering is that shadows cast from hair never affect the eyes. This helps keep them legible at all times for much the same reason the eyebrows are drawn on top of hair. But during Ruby's rant, they temporarily turn this feature off and enable shadow casting on her eyes. A subtle detail for sure, but one that makes her look raw and furious, and I love it. These four sorta looked like a freeze frame during this scene, and it kinda reminded me of this moment from Volume 5, albeit far less awkward. Neo shattering after pointing finger guns looked a little bit goofy to me, and I really don't know why. It might have been because the sound effect was wimpy, I don't know. The animation of Ruby taking off like a jet was a bit wonky, and it almost undercut a genuinely terrific moment. Almost being the operative word there. Yep. That's everything. No, I'm not joking. Turn the X off. I actually had a few more complaints written down, but while writing the script for the video, I changed my mind. My first criticism was the wicked fast pace of the chapter, and how we don't quite spend enough time with the village to care about it. I deleted this point the day after the chapter came out, when it kept me up till 3 in the morning thinking about it. I simply do not remember the last time the show has done that to me. Probably the end of Volume 3, I don't know. My second point was that everything is narrated through exposition and nothing is left open to interpretation. But the thing about that point is that it's at odds with my complaint about the pacing. Because of how snappy the episode is, verbal storytelling is the most efficient way to deliver the content. Chapter 7 challenged my preconceived notions about the nature of exposition in this show. Because the moment I saw characters sitting around a lunch table, my brain immediately went, whoops, info dump inbound, that's points deducted. But when I actually sat down to write this review, I came to the same conclusion I made in my Chapter 3 video. It's not exposition, it's storytelling. Show, don't tell, while good as a guideline, is not an unbreakable law in filmmaking. Verbal storytelling does a great job eliciting fairy tale vibes, and on reflection, I don't think I'd have it any other way. Every once in a while, a piece of media comes along that makes me stop caring about traditional criticism. I could deduct points for every visual misstep in the chapter, talk about how the lighting is uniform and uninteresting, highlight the over-reliance on dialogue with a red ballpoint pen like I'm a high school English teacher grading papers. But I don't want to. And that realization honestly made this one of the most challenging videos to write so far. Chapter 7, in my worthless opinion, is one of the strongest stories ever told in the franchise, and it's currently among my top 5 favorite Ruby episodes of all time. That's all from me. Catch you later.